One bright morning the following summer, just as Rat and Mole were finishing breakfast, there was a heavy knocking at the door. The Mole attended to the summons and flung open the parlour door, and with an air of importance stood Mr. Badger.
The hour has come. What hour? Whose hour, you should rather say? Why, Toad's hour, the hour of the Toad. I said I was going to take him in hand as soon as winter was well over, and now we're going to take him in hand today.
Mole was delighted. At last they were going to make him a sensible Toad. At that they set off down the road on the mission of mercy, Badger leading the way. As they neared the door of Toad Hall, Mr. Toad came swaggering down the steps.
Oh, hello, fellows. You're just in time for my jolly,
His hearty accent faltered and fell away as he noticed Badger's stern expression.
I'm afraid you won't be wrong today. Mr. Toad has changed his mind. He will not require the car. Please understand that this is final. You needn't wait.
wrong, there's naught to be undone. I found life pleasure, I'm having so much fun.
We'll convert you, a poor unhappy toad. Don't want to hurt you, we'll convert you, a poor unhappy toad.
It's all for your own interest that we have come today.
Don't you see I'm happy? You've gone and got it wrong.
We like you, Toadie.
Go back where you belong.
We'll convert you, we'll not hurt you, a poor unhappy toad. We must convert you, never hurt you, a poor unhappy toad.
Bringing us the rupture with beautiful ways. The time has come to warn you, no room for more delays. Swivel bank is very late when our homes we leave. And the vendors will go out because there's no reprieve.
We'll convert you, we'll not hurt you, a poor unhappy toad. We must convert you, never hurt you, a poor unhappy toad.
Sorry if I've caused a grief through my indulgent ways. I'm craving speed and power, that's to satisfy my ways.
If we are wrong, we're not convinced. Sorry for your flaw. You must be checked for law and good. We're putting you on trial.
Won't convert me, you can't convert me, for I am happy toad.
We shall convert you, we shall convert you to truly happy toad.
Having locked him up in his room, they arranged watches accordingly. Knowing that this was going to be a long job, daily he would have uncontrollable desires to act out his obsession with cars, arranging the chairs in a rude resemblance of a motor car, making uncouth and ghastly noises. Gradually these performances reduced him frequently. One fine morning, as Rat replaced Badger on guard duty, Badger commented on Toad's somewhat quiet and submissive mood.
He's in bed, can't get much out of him except leave me alone. Something's up.
Rat went into the bedroom where he found Toad lying quietly in the bed.
How are you today, old chap?
Toad, being very artful, feigned a serious illness and begged the Rat to fetch him a doctor and a lawyer.
Fetch me a doctor and a lawyer.
Rat became very concerned and anxious at his request, and forgetting the wise words of Badger and common sense, he dashed off immediately. Well, no sooner had Rat left than Toad hopped out of bed, laughing heartily, dressed as quickly as possible, and climbed out of the window. Sliding down into the ground, he made off in the opposite direction to Rat whistling a merry tune.
Toad soon found himself deeper in trouble. Unable to control his craving, he stole a motor car and ended up in jail. But of course, Toad's luck held out, and before long he made friends with the jailer's daughter, who was particularly fond of animals. The relationship developed, and before long she felt sorry for him locked up in jail all day long. She thought the penalty was too severe for such a trivial offence and offered to help him escape.
Listen, I have an aunt who's a washerwoman. She does all the washing for the prisoners in jail. This is what occurs to me. You're very rich, so you say, and she's very poor. If she was properly approached, you could come to some arrangement. You know, borrow her bonnet and dress and escape as the washerwoman.
The next evening the aunt came into Toad's cell. The lady had been prepared beforehand, and in the sight of gold sovereigns in Toad's hands, left little to discuss. In return for the cash, Toad received a cotton print gown, an apron, and a rusty brown bonnet. He made his escape dressed in her disguise. He made straight for the station and then realised in his haste that he had forgotten to pick up the money before escaping. He wandered off down the platform looking very dejected, tears welling in his eyes, and almost bumped into the engine driver.
Hello, Mother. What's the trouble? You don't look very cheerful. Oh, sir, I am a poor and unhappy washerwoman, and I've lost all my money. I need to get home, whatever happens. Oh dear, oh dear.
The engine driver was completely taken in by Toad's story and offered to give him a lift in exchange for a few shirts being washed. They sped along the tracks, Toad watching the fields and trees flash by, dreaming that every moment he was being brought nearer to Toad Hall. He made his escape and they passed through a tunnel. He eventually arrived at a road which led him onto the towpath of a canal. Marching along, he was shortly joined by a brightly painted barge pulled by a large horse. He struck up conversation with the sole occupant of the barge, a large stout woman wearing a linen sunbonnet.
Nice morning, Mum.
I dare say it's a nice morning to those who are in sore trouble like I am.
Once again Toad fabricated a story about his laundry business and how he'd left his young children at home to look after themselves while he went out in aid of his married daughter. The barge woman offered to give him a lift.
Well, I'm heading your way myself, and if you come along in the boat with me, and well, I can give you a lift. So you're in the washing business, Ma'am. A very good business you've got too, I dare say.
Finest business in the whole country.
Toad continued to drift into storytelling.
Actually, it's a bit of luck meeting you.
What do you mean?
Well, look at me. I like washing too, same as you. But there's my husband, who ought by rights to be here now, steering or looking after the horse. So he'll catch us up at the next lot. Meantime, how am I going to get on with my washing? Perhaps with an extra pair of hands on board, we could get on. You could quickly help out with the washing whilst I sit down there.
Perhaps I could steer?
You steer? It takes some practice to steer a barge properly when you've never done it before. Besides, it's dull work and I want you to be happy. No, you do the washing that you're so fond of and I'll do the steering that I understand.
Rub-dub-dub, close your scrub, crusty starching too. The pilot flows just grows and grows to make her wash make blue.
The prospect's clear that you cannot steer, but washing you adore. So please set to and clean them through, for soon there will be more. When hubby comes back, alas, alack, his clothes will full of grime. So in the tub and a jolly good scrub will restore them to their prime.
Rub-dub-dub, close your scrub, crusty starching too. The pilot flows just grows and grows to make her wash make blue.
Now let's not run
brush, a dust for the brush will clean your old man's shirt. And as for the rest, it is for the best to remove all of the dirt. He might be upset if I should forget and wash his underwear. I will not be rude, I will not intrude. You can wash it, 'tis only fair.
Rub dub dub, cause you scrub, cause he's starting to. The pile of clothes just grows and grows to make a wash it blue.
Now washerwoman, please set to with a cloth and a soap and a tub. I'll hear no more polite excuse, so laundry's there to scrub. It is good fortune you are here, a regular piece of luck. Don't find excuse to tarry more, admit you're all washed up.
Rub dub dub, cause you scrub, cause he's starting to. The pile of clothes just grows and grows to make a wash it blue. Rub dub dub, cause you scrub, cause he's starting to. The pile of clothes just grows and grows to make a wash it blue.
Toad was fairly concerned with no escape, but he began washing as best as he knew how. A long half-hour passed, and every minute saw Toad getting crosser and crosser. His back ached badly, and his paws began to get all crinkly. The barge woman laughed at him, and he exploded in a fit of temper.
You common low-fat bargeman, I would have you know that I am a toad, a very well-known, respected toad. I may not be a bit under a cloud at the moment, but I will not be laughed at by a barge woman.
The barge woman approached him and peered under his bonnet.
Why, so you are! Well, I never! A horrid, nasty, crawly toad, and in my nice clean barge too! Now that's a thing I will not have.
Relinquishing the tiller for a moment, she struck out and grabbed Toad and flung him into the canal. Eventually he made the shore, recovered his breath and ran after the barge, revenge in his heart.
Despite being imprisoned for theft, chased by an escapee and thrown into a canal by a bargewoman, Toad still managed to boast of his abilities when he arrived back with his
I've had
companions.
such a crazy time. I was in jail and I got out again. I got stuck in a canal and I swam out again. Oh, I am very smart.
Rat brought Toad down to the earth with a bump.
Toad, I don't want to give you pain, but seriously, don't you see what an awful ass you've been making of yourself? On your own admission, you've been handcuffed, imprisoned, starved, chased, insulted, and flung into the water by a woman. Where's the amusement in that? If you will be mixed up with cars, why steal them?
Toad defended his actions, saying what fun it had been and how exciting he had found it all. Toad changed the subject and suggested they strolled down to Toad Hall.
Stroll gently down to Toad Hall. Do you mean to say you haven't heard about the stoats and the weasels and the other wild wooders and how they've been in taking Toad Hall?
Toad was livid. He got up and marched down the road, his stick over his shoulder, fuming and muttering in anger. It was clear that Toad Hall was very well defended, and a cunning plan was needed if they would take the hall back from the wild wooders. The four friends argued amongst themselves as to the best plan, but were unable to agree. Then Badger came to the rescue.
Stop. I'm going to tell you a great secret. There's an underground passage that leads from here right up to Toad Hall.
Oh, nonsense, Badger. You've been listening to some of those yarns they spin in public houses. I know every inch of Toad Hall, inside and out. I can assure you.
The Chief Weasel's going to have a big banquet tomorrow night with all the weasels gathered together. And they won't have any sticks, nor arms, or guns.
We shall sneak out quietly into the butler's pantry.
With our pistols and swords and sticks, and rush in upon them.
And whack 'em and whack 'em and whack 'em.
When it began to grow dark, the rat, with an air of excitement and mystery, summoned them into the parlour. He put a belt around each one of them and supplied a sword and an axe to each.
When all was quite ready, Badger led the way. Down they went into the passage. It was cold, dark, damp, and low and poor. Toad began to shiver. They groped and shuffled along, with their ears pricked up and paws on swords, till at last Badger stopped.
Pretty nearly need to be under the pantry by now.
They hurried along the passage until it came to a full stop, and they found themselves standing in the pantry, with only a door between them and the banqueting hall.
What a time they're having.
The noise as they emerged from the passage was simply deafening. At least a voice could be heard over the din.
Well, I do not propose to detain you much longer, but before I resume my seat, I should like to say one word about our kind host, Mr. Toad. Let me sing you a little song which I've composed on the subject of Toad. The Toad who went a-pleasuring gaily down the street, he wobbled as he wandered, danced around and so petite. Such a conceited fellow, no one can push to meet. He is the lightsome, brilliant, repulsive Toad, the ranking Toad. Good old Toad to leave this place, locked in jail, he's in disgrace. He fancied he could drive a car, so off he went pip-pip. He raced down some country lanes, he tried to loop the loop. The law finally caught him up and locked him up for good. He is a thieving, buccaneering, really dishonest Toad. Good old Toad to leave this place, locked in jail, he's in disgrace. They locked him up in the strongest jail and threw away the key, and now I am the king of all the Toad he used to be. So happy birthday, Toady, from all of us to you. It's true, good old Sally knows all
And the door flung wide open and the battle commenced. The weasels dived under tables, panic-stricken. China was set crashing to the floor. The ferrets rushed for the fireplace. They were panic-stricken. The room seemed full of monstrous animals, whooping and flourishing enormous cudgels. The wild waters fled with squeals of terror and dismay in all directions. The affair was soon over. Through the broken windows and the shrieks of terrified weasels escaping across the lawn were borne faintly to their ears. The following morning, Toad overslept as usual. When eventually came down to breakfast, Badger was very short with him.
Sorry, Toad. There's a long morning's work in front of us. You must have a banquet. It's expected of you. In fact, it's the rule. Okay, anything to oblige.
All of the riverbankers and friends were invited to the banquet to celebrate Toad's homecoming. Toad became very excited about the prospect. He planned speeches, addresses and songs for the evening. He would hint at his adventures, but above all he would sing his best compositions.
Now look here, Toad, about this banquet. Understand clearly that there must be no songs and no speeches. On this occasion, we're not arguing with you, we're just telling you.
Mayn't I sing one little song?
No, not one little song. It's no good, Toadie. You know very well that your songs are all conceit and boasting and vanity, and your speeches are all self-praise and gas.
Can I, sing one little song?
Oh, very well, so long as it is little mine.
Because I'm honest.
The Toad came home. The Toad came home. There was hanging in the barn, howling in the hall, bells crying in the crash, shrieking in the stall. The Toad came home. The Toad came home. The Toad came home. There was smashing in the windows, crashing in the doors, and the strain in the windows, painting on the floors when the Toad came home. When the Toad came home. Bang goes blows the drums as the hero comes. Now the trumpets are tooting, the soldiers are saluting, the cannons they are shooting, the movers are saluting as the hero comes. As the hero comes. Shouted hooray, for it's Toad's grave.